Just in the beginning, right?
All right, well, thank you. Welcome to the meeting of the Madera County Transportation Commission. It is now 2:59. Should we wait? Okay, I'm sorry.
She'll do roll call at the beginning if
Yes.
it's not per
Yes, yes. I'll wait there because it is scheduled for 3.
advertising yours.
That's right.
Yeah.
The next hat.
Are we good? All right. Thank you again and welcome to the meeting of the Madera County Transportation Commission Policy Board. It is now 3 p.m. and we'll start this meeting. Call to order. Sam, can you take roll?
Chair Rodriguez,
Here.
Vice Chair Poitras,
Here.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Here.
Commissioner McCauley.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Zachariah, sorry.
Well, thank you. With that, we'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Commissioner Zachariah to please lead us.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, for
Welcome, everyone. We'll now go ahead and open this up to public comment. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking any substantive action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. No adverse conclusion should be drawn if the board does not respond to public comment at this time. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items that are on today's agenda. Members of the public may comment on any item that is on today's agenda when the item is called and should notify the chairperson of their desire to address the board when that item is called. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make a comment?
Seeing none online.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to the consent items. Do we have any members of our commission wishing to pull any items for separate discussion? Yes, Commissioner Poitras?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item 4A.
Okay. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to make any comments?
Online.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull item 4A for a separate discussion. We'll bring it back for the full motion.
Sure. So what this is about the meeting schedule, and I looked it over, and there's only one date I would like to maybe flag for future consideration as far as changing. It's our September meeting. It's September 23rd. It would be the 4th Wednesday. And I was hoping that we could make it the 3rd Wednesday, the 16th. And I understand that we may have, it's possible we would have our Valley Voice trip to DC on that week. There's possibility, possibly the week before, maybe that week. But if that's not, if we don't have it that week, if it's a week before, I'd just like to flag that for future consideration for potential change, only because there's a RCRC annual meeting taking place the week of, well, I guess it's the 21st of September. So that's, just wanted to flag
Thank
it.
you, Commissioner Poitras. Would this board then be amenable to add like an asterisk there to maybe have that as a 3rd Wednesday? Would that be a problem having it on the 3rd Wednesday? Typically, that's how we have our meetings, right? 3rd Wednesday.
It depends because we typically, our technical advisory committee meeting is on the 2nd Monday of every month. And then the following week is our board meeting. So sometimes it lands on the 4th Wednesday. So it does get a bit confusing. Yeah, no, that's fine. We can flag it for the 16th. The only, as Commissioner Poitras mentioned, the only conflict would be if we go to DC that week. But if history is, the same as in past years, that will be probably the week prior to that. So it should be okay.
Okay. So at this point, there is a recommendation to bring that to September 16th. Is that correct?
Right. As long as it does not interfere with the Valley Voice trip to DC.
If needed.
If needed, right.
So we'll make that amendment to that schedule. Okay. So that is the item. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Rogers is in the building.
Yes.
Right, and has joined our meeting. Any other items? From our consent. Okay, so with that modification, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Here we do have a motion from Commissioner Poitras, second from Commissioner McCauley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, okay, motion carries. I did. All right, moving on to item 5A, state legislative update, October 2025 bill matrix and draft 2026 MCTC legislative platform. I believe we have Mitch from Corey and Associates.
Yes, so this afternoon we have Mitch Weiss, who will be presenting on behalf of Corey Consulting, and we will be reviewing an update from since November 2025, so this particular month. And then also the bill matrix provides you an update. And then most importantly is our draft platform as we move forward in 2026, our legislative platform. So Mitch, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. First, I'll start with the update. The governor signed nearly 800 bills by the October 13th deadline. The memo accompanying the staff report lists 8 of the bills of interest that were signed by the governor. I'll note a few of them in particular. AB 1270, which extends the cap and invest program. AB 377, which requires the high-speed rail authority to submit a funding plan to the legislature for the Merced to Bakersfield segment. SB 71, which extends a number of CEQA exemptions from 2030 to 2040, and also adds a few new exemptions for planning activities. And then SB 707, which was the Brown Act bill that the legislature passed. It extends some Brown Act flexibilities to 2030 and provides some additional flexibilities for eligible multi-jurisdictional bodies. Also in the memo is an outlook for 2026, and I just want to touch real quickly on 3 things. One is cap and invest. It was previously called cap and trade. Now they're calling it cap and invest. There's an expectation that there will be more revenue since this program has been extended. So that'll be more money for transit and possibly an opportunity to fund our priorities. In addition, there is $1 billion that's laid out subject to annual legislative appropriation. So every year the legislature is going to have a discussion about where that $1 billion goes. We also expect for another item, SB 375, to be discussed. This is sustainable community strategies and greenhouse gas reductions. There are a lot of conversations going on with the larger MPOs and many smaller MPOs and RTPs are getting involved. That's mainly been through CalCog about how we can adjust that so it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And then also we're hoping to have continued discussion about the gas tax successor. The road charge pilot report will be coming out for the most recent pilot. And we've talked about some of the other options for the gas tax successor. So we hope those discussions will continue. Also for your consideration is the draft 2026 legislative platform. The issues and goals remain largely unchanged, but there are a few changes to the strategies, which I'll just note quickly. Under the issue 4, funding priorities, we've added a specific reference to the State Route 233 interchange project. We've talked about, added a sentence about utilizing the cap and invest funding to augment passenger rail service, and a sentence about increased permanent funding for the active transportation program and the importance of Caltrans covering maintenance costs on the state highway. Then under issue 3, we have changed it to a little, I guess, a more active sentence: pursued transit funding. We're looking forward to the discussions about the extension of AB 149, which had paused fare box recovery ratio requirements. We're going to advocate for our remaining share of SB 125 funding, which is we're still waiting on from the state. And then advocate for a portion of a new pot of money, which was 125 million that was set aside for free transit passes. Under issue 4, related to greenhouse gas emissions, we added a sentence about supporting legislation for more flexibility to meet the standards for smaller and medium-sized areas. And then we've struck a sentence related to conversion that's was a little bit dated. And that goes over the majority of the changes. I'd be happy to discuss any of them in more detail.
Thank you, Mitch. At this time, I'll ask if any of my colleagues here have any questions or major comments.
Yes, quick comment, if I may, Chair. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about, all the developments going on in the Rio Mesa area and all the different road projects going on. And I don't know specifically what it looks like, what is needed as far as advocacy goes, but I just wonder if there's some way we can kind of, I guess, address that, call that out within our platform. And just to ensure that when there's opportunities, we're taking advantage of those. And again, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I would be curious about staff's perspective on that, and if there are opportunities in which we could or should be advocating for, these improvements that are going on in, I guess, the southeast corner of there.
And you're referring to road improvements. Yeah. So anytime that we're on any kind of advocacy efforts, we do consider all Madera County, the entire region. And depending on the availability of funding or what the issue may be, we some projects fit in certain categories,
Sure.
Some projects don't fit. So we're always have our eyes open, especially for the State Route 41 corridor, mainly because of the it's not a project that is funded by the state, because it's not on the high emphasis focus route. We continue to try to ensure that we do get included on that. So we'll continue along those efforts. But anytime funding becomes available, for instance, as Mitch mentioned, the 1 billion in cap and invest, we don't know how those funds are going to be administered yet, or what the legislator is going to, what pots of funding they're going to identify and what projects would fit in. But all projects we would consider as we move forward. State
Sure.
Route 233 interchange, which is pretty much ready for construction. The design is almost complete, if not complete already, and they're waiting for funding. Same with State Route 41, same thing. So whatever becomes available, we'll have that discussion here as well. But we will be going to the state probably in January, February on an advocacy effort for Madera. And we can always include the Rio Mesa area as well, the 41 corridor, Southeast Madera County area. Same with the mountain community.
Sure.
I think, yeah.
I'm just wondering how that looks in a legislative platform, though, like as we're creating this, or, I know that we're always doing it, generally speaking, but I think when I've worked on other boards, one thing that I found to be helpful is when we call out specific efforts for improvement. Example I'll make, with the air district, staff was very uncomfortable with calling out, biomass facilities within our legislative platform for a number of reasons. So just getting that language in our platform was, a good thing in my opinion, because it shows that our board and the organization as a whole supports that effort. Similarly with improvements going on in the Rio Mesa area, again, I don't know what it would look like, but I'm just wondering if there would be value in that effort. Just knowing that it is, fairly monumental from Madera's perspective, right? The number of projects that not only that we're seeing right now, but what we see in the not too distant future, I think is pretty big. I think.
Well, conversations with your staffs would be helpful to know what projects of interest and where they stand on completion. Are they in the planning stages? Are they in the environmental stage?
So within the legislative platform, is that kind of what we're looking for, more specifics, or are we looking
More
more
broad,
broadly?
Probably a
Right?
little bit more broad
Yeah.
in terms of our legislative platform.
Okay.
And if issues come up, those are normally discussed. One is as the gas tax successor. That's one that, we need to have a resolution to. That won't come from Madera. That's, solely, it's going to have to be statewide. But for Madera specific projects, it really depends on funding availability, and, the criteria. SB1 dollars are one. So let's just say that SB1 funds are available. We'd like to go to our local legislative bodies after speaking with your staffs on what projects we would like to recommend and move forward, and we will advocate on behalf of those projects. So guidelines, we follow certain guidelines. Guidelines change every time there's a cycle. So if it's something that's that would not benefit Madera, we would be advocating, this is, the one size fits all type of a conversation. Your Madera is not going to qualify for this particular fund source. We recommend you do this, that kind of conversations go on at the legislative level. But if there's a specific project and there's and additional details available to us, we could see if it could fit in any of the categories in the platform. Yeah, the 233 project, we know that they've gone after funding LPP dollars, same with the State Route 41,
Right.
unsuccessful. We need to look at all sources of available funding, if it's public safety funding, if it's transportation funding, if it's, where could this project fit in the category? So Chowchilla staff has approached us and similarly would like us to go and, assist them in looking for additional funding. We're always supportive of all grant opportunities in Madera County.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Also, Commissioner McCauley, any other comments that we have? I just wanted to ask Mitch, with the road user charge, it looks like this is probably going to drag on because it seems like with your staff, with the staff report that we received, it seems like certain things weren't done in these communities to try to get an idea of how this is going to be implemented. Therefore, we have a possibility of a $5 billion reduction over the next 10 years. But here in Madera, obviously, that's a big impact for us because, as the report stated, it's anywhere from $4.5 to $6.5 million. What can we do legislatively, especially within our region, to advocate for this? Because we're a smaller MPO, but we do depend on these STIP dollars, right? And for us, that's a huge burden on us not to have that type of funding. So what else do we need to do, or how can we form another we already have somewhat of a coalition through our regional policy council, but more importantly, here locally, like what can we do to help, move this forward? I know that Commissioner Poitras, you were part of that same road user charge, and any insight you can give us?
So I think there are two things. One is we can certainly make it a more central point of discussions when we do go to Sacramento, to let our legislators know that this is of concern to us. The other thing is, you mentioned that the Valley Regional Policy Council, perhaps we need to have more robust discussions there. I think there are some of our colleagues there who are a little less willing to step up on this issue.
All right. Well, again, I would hope that we come up with a solution, because, it don't seem like they're just kicking the can down the road, but it's not something that, and as more and more electrification comes across us, like EVs and other alternative fuels, there's still a reduction in revenues that we would receive. So
Lori Wilson has has been holding workshops around the state, soliciting feedback on the road user charge or gas tax successor, open to hearing any kind of discussion. I'm not sure if she's going to be developing some sort of information paper out of this outcome, but needless to say, she is holding these workshops, and the legislature is well aware of the issue, but doesn't seem like anyone's willing to to bite on it, yeah, or to take this and run with it. So you have to kind of find somebody who's going to be interested in moving it forward. We are proposing and working with Gus and Mitch to at least have a conversation one-on-one with Assembly Member Wilson to let them know, you know, just from our perspective. As you mentioned, with the STIP reductions or the gas tax, you know, how are we going to get projects done? Something needs to be done sooner rather than later. But the flip side of it all is we have a governor who's on his, you know, on his way out, and doesn't look like anybody's going to move that needle right now until we have a new governor in place. And unfortunately, you know, with it's going to make it difficult to, you know, in the next STIP cycle. Later on our agenda, we have an item on ITIP and RTIP, the Interregional Improvement Program and the Regional Improvement Program, and the funding for that. We have funding this particular cycle, but in 2 years, there might not be any funding available because there isn't funding that's being collected. We're seeing a reduction in funds available for projects, but it's a statewide issue. We're talking about it statewide, but it doesn't look like anything has really moved forward. Now, having said that, Supervisor Poitras would know more about the road user charge and the status of the road user charge. I know they had a pilot program and it seemed to work, but yet I don't think we as a group don't think that that's going to be one solution. It might be a combination of a couple of solutions to make up for the difference.
Yeah, I was just, gonna mention, I think the fact that our next meeting for the road user charge committee is not gonna be until maybe the 19th or 20th of February. That tells me a lot right there. In addition to that, you know, Lori Wilson had a listening session tour throughout the state last summer. And, you know, several of us attended meeting when she was in Fresno. So she took a lot of testimony, heard things. Yes, yes, yes. But unfortunately, it's again, it's a political hot potato and nobody wants to grab it and run with it. And it's too hot. And certainly the ruling party in Sacramento, I don't know, I guess maybe they look at it as being very unpopular. People are very suspicious about the idea of, you know, some alternative way, because let's face it, we've had the gas tax at the pump since the 1920s. So it's been 100 years or more that we've had that system. So any type of change is going to be met with deep suspicion. So and with the fact that the Newsom administration is on their way out, people are, you know, jumping off the ship looking for other jobs. I think it's going to be 2026 is not going to be the year that we see much movement. That said, Hawaii started their program. They looked at our program when we were working on it back in the teens. They've already got theirs implemented. You know, we're not even, so they just, you know, sped right past us. Much smaller state, but it can be done, you know, but again, there's no political will.
That's based on use, Rob, in Hawaii.
What's that?
It's all based on use in Hawaii.
It's yes. Yep. There are some, there's some nuances, but for the most part, yeah, use miles.
Nuance, government.
Well, I'm just disappointed that Commissioner Sakurai doesn't pay anything at the pump with this Model Y. So thank you again, Mitch. I think that's all we have. Any other comments or questions? Then I'll move forward. Thanks again, Mitch, for that report. This is a discussion open to the public in case there's any comment. Seeing none, hearing none, move on to item 5B, State Route 99 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. And this is Mr. Stone.
Thank you, sir. So, 3 meetings in a row, we have plans from our partners at District 6 to present to you. 233 to 145, and now the CMCP of State Route 99. So without further ado, I'll introduce Alec Kimmel, our branch chief from District 6, Division of Planning, Local Programming, Environmental Analysis. And he has prepared a presentation regarding the now finalized CMCP for State Route 99. So, Are you set up or do you need me to get?
Set up, I'm gonna be sharing my screen, so. Just need a moment, pull everything up. Thank you for bearing with me, everyone, as I work with the technology.
Couldn't be any worse than that user, X, right? The user gets. Right. That's been going on for some time now, so. We'll be okay. A couple minutes shouldn't hurt.
So Rob, what is a knight's favorite fish?
Gosh, knights, oh, okay.
Ah, she got it.
What was it?
It's a swordfish.
Oh, so
Stick around for the next one.
Yeah.
thank you, Chair Rodriguez and commissioners for buying a little bit of time there. And thank you all for listening and in the audience online. As Dylan mentioned, my name is Alec Kimmel. I'm the System Planning Branch Chief at Caltrans District 6. And I'm very pleased to be able to present on the State Route 99 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. This was truly a unique effort. It was a collaboration between 3 Caltrans districts, ourselves, District 10 and District 3 in the north, as well as all of the district local agency partners, including yourselves. So very grateful to be able to finally present the final CMCP. As you're probably aware, many of you, I also served as the Caltrans contract manager. This was a effort that we brought in a qualified consultant to help us develop. So first, a little bit of background. There's a long history on efforts to plan for State Route 99, going back really decades. We had, as we do with most of our corridors in Caltrans District 6, we had a transportation concept report and a few corridor system management plans that were published in the mid to late 2000s. Around that same time, we also, and I want to call attention to the graphic timeline that you see here on the screen. We also prepared the State Route 99 business plan. This was a document that was developed in order to prepare a program for the expenditure of Proposition 1B funding during the 2000s. That document had 4 priorities in order: converting the non-freeway sections to freeway, a minimum of 6 lanes throughout both District 6 and District 10. This was a joint effort, again, between the 2 districts and our partners. Operational improvements, including looking at intelligent transportation systems and the potential for high occupancy vehicle lanes on the facility, and then finally new interchanges where needed. Really key in that list of priorities was the second priority for the minimum of 6 lanes throughout 99, the 6-lane profile. We had a couple, as you see on the timeline, a couple different iterations of the business plan, updates to it that ultimately culminated in a final update in 2020, sunsetting that effort, but with the intention of the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, or CMCP, being the successor document to that effort. However, a lot changes from 2005 to 2020 in terms of state policy and direction. And there was a need to have a shared vision that incorporated both that new direction and the priorities from the business plan, really making sure that we could finish what we started in partnership with our local and regional partners on 99.
So after a visioning session that was held in January 2021 with the then planning director and the Valley executives, we were committed to holding a summit event essentially to establish that shared vision. Around that same time, give or take a few months, the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program for the year 2022 was being developed and ultimately released with funding award of $33.5 million for South Madera 6-lane project. But that funding award was conditioned upon two requirements. One, that the shared vision be established by March 15th of 2022, essentially holding that summit event to be able to do that by that time. And then for the CMCP document as the second condition being completed prior to the ITIP funding allocation in fiscal year 25-26, our current state fiscal year today. At around that same time, District 3 joined the effort. They recognized that they had a portion of State Route 99 within their own district. They were looking to be able to have a vision document for that portion of 99 and be able to apply for Congested Corridors Senate Bill 1 funding, which requires that projects be in a CMCP in order to qualify for the funding. So at that point, it became the 3-district effort. District 3 was a little bit late to participate in the summit event. We did successfully hold that by the deadline. It was a 2-day event. Many of you will recall March 3 and 4 of 2022 with about 70 individuals attending in person and many more attending online. And we were successful in crafting a shared vision at that summit event that we then were able to carry forward into the development of the CMCP. However, even with 3 Caltrans districts and 8 regional agencies collaborating, we were a little bit unsure of our own ability and our own capacity to be able to deliver a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan in time for that ITIP allocation. And so this was the point at which we were putting together an intake form for state planning and research funding to be able to, which is a federal funding source, to be able to then bring on a qualified consultant to develop CMCP in partnership and in collaboration with state Caltrans districts and with the agency partners. So we were successful in getting an award of SP&R, state planning and research funding of $1.65 million mere weeks after we held the summit. March 2022 was a big month for us for this effort. And development of contract materials began shortly afterwards, after a process working through the review with our Division of Procurement and Contracts. We were successfully able to execute the contract and begin work on the CMCP summer of 2023. I also want to mention just in passing that District 3 had a managed lane system plan that was overlapping their timeline with the development of the CMCP. So it added an extra level of complexity to be able to coordinate. All of this is to say our scope and our study area ultimately was 273 miles of State Route 99 from the junction with Interstate 5 in the south to the junction with US 50 in the north. As I mentioned, 3 Caltrans districts, 8 MPOs. We included Kings County Association of Governments, even though State Route 99 does not traverse it. Our consultant and our development team recognized that the alignment of the high-speed rail service, proposed California high-speed rail service, would be running parallel to 99, and it was essentially the most prominent parallel facility that we would have. They really began to see 99 and the high-speed rail. And this is something that was carried forward from discussions in the summit as parallel facilities and part of the same corridor, interacting with one another. So you see the map on the left here of the corridor, just showing 99, not necessarily the high-speed rail service, although that is shown in the plan. And then on the right, I don't know how readable that is, but that's essentially the consultant's process for development of the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. It's adapted from our own 8-step process that I presented on before, but essentially simplified and catered specifically to 99 with 4 main steps, defining the corridor characteristics, analyzing the gaps and opportunities, identifying solutions, and then developing plans for implementation. Ultimately, the scope of work included 6 tasks. In addition to the obligatory administrative task, we had a task for data assessment and collection, public outreach and engagement, baseline performance and identification of and analyses of strategies, the solutions, alternatives, and prioritization, and finally, last but not least, development of the draft and final report itself, which included as a feature in the appendices monitoring and evaluation plan. And so just to give some context to the graphics, on the left, you see the title card for a promotional video that we had as one of the subtasks and task deliverables of our contract. This was used to promote the public engagement workshops that we held in early 2024. And then on the right, just a snapshot of the extensive solutions list that we ultimately were able to gather together with help from all of your agencies, pulling from various sources. The contents of the main report are organized as a series of chapters. We have an executive summary and introduction, goals, objectives, and performance measures is the next chapter, followed by existing conditions, stakeholder and public engagement chapter, chapter on the transportation solutions, and then implementation, funding, limitations, and next steps. That is followed by a series of appendices, which you see here, and I won't read off the screen, but I included these 2 slides on the CMCP organization mostly to illustrate that it was an intentional move on the part of the CMCP development team to organize the report in such a way that the details of the analysis and data that were gathered were not included in the main report, and that for the main report, it was crafted more as sort of a general narrative kind of structure. And the reason this was done is this decision was made was we wanted to make sure that the document would be accessible to a wide audience, recognizing all of the different parties that were involved. We had a technical advisory committee of over 200 members from across the different lengths of the corridor. 99 itself behaves in various ways. It operates as a commuter corridor north and more sort of a goods movement heavy corridor in the south and through District 6. Particularly through Kern County and going up through Madera. And so we wanted to make sure that this document would be a high-level document with access to all of the sort of more detailed work and more of the analysis of data, but having that separate from the main narrative. And part of the decision behind that as well was we wanted to make sure that this document would be flexible, essentially. We foresaw that the CMCP potentially would fulfill its purpose in helping to, with the implementation of projects as a wider strategy for 99 over the next couple of decades at least. And we don't pretend to know what the funding or political climate or policy landscape will be in 20 years, we wanted to make sure that this document would still be functional and usable in that future scenario. Moving into the findings of the CMCP, you see here, the CMCP had 10 goals, which included supporting the economy, safe transportation system, improvement of air quality, equity, maintenance, reducing congestion remains a key feature of the plan, as well as looking at resilience, public health, and technology. And then on the left, the bullet list is essentially paraphrasing a series of rhetorical questions that the consultant used to frame the discussion in the narrative. Key milestone deliverables I mentioned before is main task, public outreach and engagement workshops. We held 16 virtual public workshops in 2 rounds of 8, one in June of 2024, which was essentially to introduce and share the effort with the public. And then another set in February of 2025 that came back to share the results of the modeling and analysis that had been done at that point and the solutions development, and gather additional input from the public at that point. There were 2 workshops for every county per round, except for Sacramento, which only received 1 per round. The solutions inventory ultimately includes over 1,200 different solutions drawn from project lists in the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy documents, some input and suggestions from subject matter experts on the consultant team. And then finally, as I mentioned, from the second round of workshops, input from the public. We actually, our consultant team, took suggestions they received from members of the public during those workshops and incorporated them into the final solutions list. And then just briefly touching on the scenario modeling and analysis in the appendices, you'll find that we ran analyses on 6 different model scenarios, looking at not just the baseline for 2020 and 2050, sort of a business as usual scenario, but also a series of scenarios looking at different managed lane configurations throughout the corridor. Again, just briefly touching on the findings, this is from the data gathering portion of the CMCP. Just some key facts and statistics. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with these, but 99 carries more than 20% of trucks in its annual average daily traffic, which is more than several interstates throughout the country. We also, here in the Valley, produce 25% of the nation's food. And at the same time, we have some of the highest poverty rates in the country. So a lot of challenges associated with the corridor. In addition to, the consultant made note of flooding incidents that occurred with the major storms that took place in 2023, just prior to them coming on board. And that featured heavily in their chapter looking at resilience for the corridor. Altogether, acknowledging that 99 is essentially the spine, the backbone of the Central Valley, and provides access for communities and goods movement, as well as being a gateway to the Sierra Nevadas through parallel and intersecting routes. The consultant's strategy for structuring the plan and structuring how the solutions would be prioritized, and our development team came up with a series of sort of layered solutions. I mentioned a parallel facility being embodied in the California high-speed rail, as well as the facility, 99 highway itself. And adding to that, this third layer of different modes and different foci related to technology, resiliency, human and natural environment, and reduction of greenhouse gases for a fully layered approach that you see here realized visually in the different color scheme. So what do we get out of all of this? What is the final benefit? At the end of the day, we do have an almost, I think actually it's more than 600 pages when you include the appendices document that is a comprehensive, full comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. To date, I don't believe that we in Caltrans District 6 necessarily are qualifying for congested corridors funding on our highway projects. But when we reach the point where we do, we now have a plan that would enable us to do so, that would enable us to qualify. The solutions list includes almost an equal number of transit and rail and active transportation projects, solutions, I should say, to the managed lanes interchange solutions. And just to give you an idea of what some of these look like, we had our consultant put together a list, and you see here a couple just example IDs, zero emission freight charging fueling stations in Kern County may be constructed as a part of a public-private partnership with the Pilot Flying J to help with the transition to electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. And then intercity bus service between Fresno and Bakersfield using 99 as another example. I apologize. This is a little bit of a recycled presentation, and I meant to find an example from Madera, but rest assured, there are many others in Madera as well. I also just want to mention in passing, a qualitative score was given to all of the 1,200 solutions that are in the appendices for the plan for the CAPTI and CSIS rubrics that are required for many of our state funding programs. And respectively, these two projects have a alignment of a medium and a high score. So that can be helpful in the future when applying for funding for any of these solutions potentially. We do acknowledge that the details of the solutions in the appendices of the plan are left fairly general. Again, that's to allow greater flexibility. The main report of the CMCP, as well as the appendices, acknowledges several times that in many cases, further project level analysis will be needed. We want to be cognizant that this is, at the end of the day, a plan document. We received several comments asking for greater granularity and greater detail, but we thought it was best that was left to more of an appropriate project level analysis. So in closing, our State Route 99 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan is posted on a website that we developed in-house and include as a link on our Caltrans District 6 website. Here's the link to that. It includes the main report, but unfortunately we were not able to include the appendices as all of our documents, in order to be posted publicly online, need to be remediated for Americans with accessibilities. However, the appendices are available upon request for anyone who wants to see those. And at that point, my presentation is concluded, and I'll take any questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. I appreciate that presentation. Any members of the commission would make any comments or questions? This is a multimodal comprehensive plan. One thing that I will say is looking at all the investment strategies that you noted earlier, with this plan, we can be more aggressive when trying to apply for certain funding, correct? Correct. Yes, and I think there's quite a few of them laid out, which, from active transportation to transit and rail, I'm sure whenever something like that comes before our regional areas, we can certainly utilize that as a tool to help us get that funding. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, this is a discussion item. I'll open it up to public, see if there's any questions, comments.
Seeing none online.
All right, we'll move on to item 5C. Thank you again, Alex. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Item 5C, Madera County Regional Transportation Improvement Program, RTIP.
Yes, so if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if we can do item C and D somewhat together.
Okay,
D is for information discussion only. Item C is for your approval. But item D is the the interregional transportation improvement program. So just kind of like a recap. There's a state transportation improvement program. Of that state transportation improvement program, we have an interregional transportation improvement program, and then we have a regional transportation improvement program. And every 2 years, it's updated. It's a 5-year plan or program, I should say. And funding may or may not become available. As I mentioned earlier, if there's funds available, we receive a county share, and the state receives a share. The regions receive 75%, and the state receives 25%. And we are tasked with programming those dollars. And for the interregional transportation improvement program, item 5D, the state has prepared a number of projects to be included in this interregional improvement program. And there are several projects, there's a few projects, I should say, in Madera County. And the projects are along the State Route 99 corridor. The first one is State Route 99. We call it State Route 99 South project, which is 7 to 12. This is a carryover project, and the project is in the draft plan, requesting a little bit over 5 million for that particular project. It's 5.293, and this is for additional engineering and construction phases for that particular project. We do expect to be under construction, or at least breaking ground, by the summer of this upcoming year for that particular project. The second project is the 99 North project, which is 17 to 21. And we were fortunate enough to have that project submitted back in the last interregional improvement program for environmental. Now this is also considered a carryover project. It's a priority of the state and of our region to complete State Route 99, and Caltrans is requesting a total of 17.9 million for the 17 to 21, and this is for the design and right-of-way phases. The other project that is included in the ITIP request is just continuing over is the high-speed rail station planning over there on Avenue 12. And I believe that's $80 million. So the process for this is there were workshops held to receive testimony. That was a couple of weeks ago. It was about 2 weeks ago. They had a south hearing and a north hearing. We testified in the north hearing. We're considered north state.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Uh-huh.
When we talk regional and interregional, I'm assuming those areas are geographically defined. Is that correct, or are we just like?
So the interregional program is statewide.
Okay.
And the district may receive, District 6 puts in, a bid or a request for a certain amount of funding for certain projects. I don't believe it's spread equally throughout all districts in the state of California. It's based on need and carryover projects, and they have to kind of submit their case. The regional program is we receive a target, and our target this year, which Jeff will go into more detail, is a little bit over 4 million, and we are responsible for programming the regional funds.
That's just Madera, though.
That's just Madera. Just Madera.
Okay.
There's been years where we don't receive any funding, and there's been years where we've been requested to move projects out. So it really depends on the year.
Interregional again is the entire state.
Interregional is the entire state.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Appreciate it.
And so there were hearings and we did testify at the North hearing. We also have included in your package, a couple of letters in support of Caltransit's request to include those projects. And those letters are from, of course, Madera County Transportation Commission, but also the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council and and the State Route 99 Coalition have submitted letters. And now this will go to Caltrans by December 15th. And then it'll go back to the California Transportation Commission for approval at their March meeting. And so Caltrans currently right now is receiving feedback on the projects included in, and we will know by mid-December whether or not those projects move forward. Same with ours, and I'll let Jeff go ahead and speak in regards to our regional transportation improvement program, if you don't mind. And he'll share with us the process related to our regional program. Jeff?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As was mentioned, there are 3 different plans that all go along at the same time that are done every 2 years. I'll use the acronym since she's already spelled out the words. There's the MCTC RTIP, there's the ITIP, and there's also the STIP. So these are all related and they all move at the same time and they all have pretty much the same information. So this particular plan, as was previously mentioned, has funding for 2 existing projects. There are no new projects being proposed in the 2026 ITIP, and that's primarily because projects are not ready to go or they don't fit in with the STIP schedule or available STIP funding. As was mentioned, I won't go over the dollar amounts again, but Caltrans needed additional funding for the South Madera 6-lane project. And it was exciting to hear about the North Madera 6-lane project getting the entire funding all the way to construction. So we're hoping in the next STIP that we will receive funding as well as seeking out additional grant funds for that particular project. MCTC also receives planning, programming, and monitoring funds, which are called PPM. They're every 2 years, and they're spread out over 5 years. There's a complicated formula that the CTC uses. So we have received $227,000 for planning, programming, and monitoring. Again, that's spread over 5 years, and that's included on the very last page of the RTIP itself. One thing we always do, as Director Taylor mentioned, after December 15th and before the actual adoption of all 3 documents in March, sometimes there are changes or tweaks to the funding, or there's requesting additional information. So the adoption resolution that you will be approving today grants the executive director to make any type of revisions to the RTIP itself. It's pretty straightforward this year since there are no new projects. Caltrans has requested the funding, so everything should be lining up accordingly. And the deadline to submit the 2026 RTIP is December 15th, 2025. You also mentioned earlier our STIP shares. Did you want me to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. So there are shares that are received but not necessarily available due to the STIP allocation. So the Madera region, we're finally in positive territory again. So we have approximately, or we will have approximately $4.5 million available. And we're hoping to allocate those funds to a project in the next RTIP itself. So therefore, that concludes my presentation. Director Taylor covered most of what I was going to talk about. Staff's recommendation is to approve the 2026 Madera RTIP by resolution 25-11 and direct staff to submit to the California Transportation Commission by December 15th, 2025. So that concludes my presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Finley. At this time, I'll ask if there's any comments, questions regarding item 5C. Any member of the public wishing to make a comment?
I don't see any online.
Public comment, bring that back. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner Poitras, second from Commissioner McCauley. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 5D, you spoke on that as well, right, Director Taylor? So that was discussion.
Information discussion.
only.
Mhm.
Any questions, comments on that item? Members of the public?
No,
All right, so we'll move on to item 5E, California Housing Law and Policy Update Recap. Mr. Dillon.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a recap of a conference that a contingent from Madera County was able to attend at the end of October in Sacramento. The California Association of Council of Governments, otherwise known as CalCog, hosted the California Housing Law and Policy Update. This was a series of sessions really about a lot of the change that's happened in California with housing law, some of the new things that are online in the past couple of years, especially that are integrated with transportation planning. In particular, focused on transit-oriented developments or affordable housing options. A lot of new exemptions through the CEQA process for those types of housing within the places the state would like to see more of that type of housing. There were 3 that were presented more than others. There were about 50 or so listed in the program. I'll just briefly talk about those. I think the one that was talked about the most actually only applied to maybe 4 or 5 regions of the state, and that's SB 79. That changes housing law, especially around high quality transit areas, high quality rail transit areas as well. A very high criteria for that, actually. I think the only place in the San Joaquin Valley that has a criteria that fits within the SB 79 framework is the bus rapid transit in Fresno County, the city of Fresno. That essentially changes zoning law around these stations so that there can be more affordable housing, essentially. It gives the authority to the transit agencies away from the local jurisdictions as well as giving RENA a lot more say in how those new housing types, when implemented, will affect the RENA for all the areas in the state, essentially. So not applicable to us, but it's always good to watch those things from the state because they do have a tendency to trickle down to other areas as the years go on. AB 130 and SB 131 were also heavily discussed, and they were discussed together. They streamline a lot of the CEQA elements for housing, added a lot of new exemptions for housing and housing types to fit in with what we're talking about with the SB 79 as well. Adding new exemptions for agriculture employee housing, to daycare, rural healthcare clinics, food banks, high-speed rail support infrastructure, wildfire risk reduction activities, a lot of disadvantaged community water systems. And there was an emphasis on these, especially when they were in a high-focus transit corridor. And then with AB 130, that goes into greater detail about the housing exemptions, particularly for those different categories I was mentioned, to tie those into those. That does have application in a lot more areas than SB 79. It's something to monitor. We had quite a few presentations during that, and one of the biggest takeaways from a lot of them was that there is a huge degree of change. The conference started by saying there's been over 450 housing law changes in the past 8 years. And what's really effective for some of the people we spoke to was to be proactive, to not just react to new laws, but try to follow with your staff ahead of time what's happening so you can gear your staff, your departments in ways that can best take advantage of new CEQA exemptions, especially that are coming online. how to best take advantage of those in your area, develop an inventory of where you could take advantage of new laws, and while also being able to meet your MENA needs, for example, really combining new things you can do to meet these other state goals as well for housing. We also had a presentation that was something that could be a benefit to some of our planning staffs, especially at the planning counter. This was an artificial intelligence-based system that's able to study, read, and understand your zoning laws at a high level. And then potential applicants can essentially put their plans through this process, and it can give them feedback with a much faster process, especially for very busy areas where sometimes that can be a logjam for certain communities at the planning counter, especially if there's a lot happening, a lot of new development. This is something that an applicant can review before they officially submit, in fact, to get feedback from the system that has learned the local zoning laws. So hopefully that is something that can speed up the process if that can get online in more areas. I believe our county staff that went with us said they were familiar with it and actually had seen a presentation on that last year as it was getting ready to be rolled out for California communities. I mentioned we had a contingent that went with us, including some of our board members, Chair Rodriguez and Commissioner Poitras, as well as planning staff from Madera County. So it was good that we had quite a few people there to listen to these and take that in, especially with planning staff. We're very much in the transportation realm at MCTC. However, we do integrated planning with our RTPSCS. So there was a lot of very interesting information. With that would conclude my report. I would point out, though, that CalCog has a lot of resources around what happened at this conference online, with all of the different laws they went over. There's a list of about 50 I mentioned, but those three in particular are really focused on.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. I will say that after from the 400 new laws, I think after the first one, I got lost in it.
It's good they gave us a big list with a summary of each.
Thank you for that update. At this time, I'll ask if there's any member of this commission. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the discussion, and I just want to draw back because when I was asking about the legislative platform, I think this is kind of the context in which I was asking around it is where can we be involved in, I guess, creating good advocacy around streamlining housing, right? And a big portion of that is the road infrastructure needed to carry people to their new homes, right? And so I think that's kind of, again, what I was kind of looking at or thinking about with my suggestion previously around the legislative platform. So I just wanted to make that quick comment.
And something that could front load that advocacy is that I was mentioned at the meeting or at the conference was develop a local inventory of your key locations based on these new laws where you have the most ability to take advantage. And if you do know you have developers or project sponsors that want to forward something, then maybe you can prioritize some of these areas and have a fit there and then really go aggressive towards that.
Thank you again, Mr. Stone. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment. There's a lot of thoughts I have, but I'll just mention one. We hear about transit-oriented housing and it's housing. It's all affordable housing. It's not housing that's affordable. It's all affordable housing. And I'm kind of wondering if we're looking at some unintended consequences of clustering low-income people in certain areas. We hear about, affordable housing, has something like, does have market rate housing, but I'm kind of wondering how many people realistically want to live in market rate housing in an affordable housing area. Typically, people don't like to do that or to buy or to invest. So I think that's one of my concerns. I think it's whoever's coming up with the ideas, I don't think they realize what they're doing, because we've got housing projects and quote unquote bad sides of town and so forth that have proliferated over the last 100 years. And to me, this seems to be the latest high-tech version of clustering low-income people. So just a comment, observation.
Thank you for that observation, Commissioner Poitras. Again, part of that conference or platform that they had gave us an opportunity to see all these new laws that are coming about. Like you mentioned, AB 130, SB 131, that exempts people for certain projects. I think to Supervisor's point there is that now with this exemption, it almost incentivizes you to go out there and push these projects out there. But again, some of them fit in certain areas that are probably more urban. that are closer to these corridors. In certain cases, I kind of agree that in many cases, is that what you want? Is that the outcome that we want to see, 30, 40 years from now? Well, this particular planned and/or policy just sounded good. But when you look at it, reality shows is that maybe this cluster of housing isn't probably the best option. And we've seen that in history as well. So I totally agree that sometimes when we come up with these plans, they're not always in the best interest of our region itself, but rather as a state, but not one size fits all. And that's kind of been the advocacy that not only your regional policy council, but this transportation commission has really advocated for, is that we look for policies that make sense for our regions. So I wanted to end with that. I'm not sure if there's any other comments.
I would make one
Yeah.
last quick comment, and it kind of builds off of what you were saying. Because when I've had conversations with, our state electeds around, hey, we need funding for 41, one of the pushbacks I get from them is, well, you guys don't have enough affordable housing, in your project area. And that's been a pushback. And so to me, that says, yeah, our priorities are all out of whack because we're not building any housing unless it's affordable housing, apparently. And we're continuing to prioritize the affordable housing. We're creating winners and losers essentially, and everybody else is a loser in that scenario. So, yeah, just again, appreciate the comments from both of you.
Yeah, and again, just to chime off of that is that the areas that you'll designate won't always be the most desirable areas. Just because it's affordable housing doesn't mean that it's very desirable housing. It's affordable because it meets certain criteria, exempted, you're located here. Potentially, you can have some other impacts that we may not see. So again, something to track. Appreciate Dylan's very thorough in his presentation. I do appreciate everything that he gathered. The one thing that I did walk away with that was that Archistar, right?
Archistar, yeah.
Archistar, which I did present to our city manager and our planning director to take advantage of it and maybe start looking into that to speed check all these permits and what have you. But with that, that's all I have. Any other comments? Yes.
Affordable housing is almost an oxymoron in the state of California. They created a circumstance. I build houses, so I know this. In a circumstance where I built the same house I built 25 years ago. It's the same house. It hasn't changed a bit. Not much in terms of the structure, the benefits, the radiant barrier, this and that, and the other thing. And yet the red tape to build that house, that same house, has increased 100-fold to the point where it is added exponentially to the cost to build that house. And then, of course, you've got a lumber tax that's special. It's a 1% tax on lumber. You've got all of the CEQA requirements, the various requirements. You have to jump through all these hoops, but by the time you get a few lots ready for development, you spent millions of dollars, and you got to recuperate those costs, or it's not worth it. And so we've got to look at the beginning of this thing. We got to go back to what are we trying to accomplish? And I would say that what we need to think about is streamlined areas to build housing, period. Streamlined to the point where you're not going to have to spend these millions of dollars to get to the point where you put up the first stick. I think the average right now is 30 to 50,000 before you ever put a piece of concrete in the ground foundationally. 30 to 50,000, that's quite an investment already. And that has nothing to do with the structure. So we're countering, we're creating a circumstance where it's impossible to create affordable housing for people in general. My children will not know the American dream unless I can help them get there personally. They will not know it. And they're not the only ones like that. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of others like that. We've created a monster, and we've got to dial the monster back.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. I think there is a term that Commissioner Poitras uses that is no longer, that you're using affordable housing, but you're not using housing that's affordable.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of to your point, right? It seems like we're flip-flopping it, and that's quite the issues that
What's that?
yeah. Well, it wasn't me.
I want to
I'm
borrow
just-
that
I'm
one.
gonna- I borrowed it. I think I have rights for it for another week, so just.
You said what I was trying to say in one sentence.
All right, so with that, any comments from the public?
None online.
Okay, so that is an item for information and discussion. We'll move on to item 6, MCTC sitting as the Madera County Transportation Commission. Item 6 is to reaffirm all actions taken while sitting as a Transportation Policy Committee.
So move.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, second from Commissioner Poitras. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item 7, administrative consent items. Do we have any member here wishing to pull out any of these items? If not, I'll open it up to the public.
None online.
Any done? Okay. All right, we have a motion from Commissioner McCauley. Second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item 9, MCTC sitting as the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. Item 9 is the administrative consent items. If there's no items, okay, pulled. I'll open it up to, yep.
And Mr. Chair, I think we'll make the same action that we did in the commission meeting for September meeting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So on that note, for the item, I believe it's item 9A, we'll make that same adjustment we did for the other item on the calendar. So do we have any members of the public wishing to make a comment?
None online.
Okay, we did have a motion from Commissioner.
Second.
Right, Commissioner
Rogers.
Commissioner Rogers, second, from Commissioner Poitras. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay, item 10, authority action discussion items. Item 10A, 2025 focus on the future conference recap.
Yes, this is an opportunity for those who attended the Focus on the Future. It was held from November 9th to November 11th. And included in the staff report is a list of kind of some subjects and focused items that were discussed during the conference, breakout sessions and general session. Those that attended was myself, Chair Rodriguez and Vice Chair Poitras attended the event, and usually we have these items before you if they'd like to share their experience or what they may or may not have learned, or if they do or don't recommend attending the Focus on the Future. And this was held in San Francisco. Self-help counties is the half-cent sales tax counties, or actually sales tax counties, not necessarily all half-cent, throughout the state of California. And they hold an annual conference every year. And this one was in San Francisco. Next year's will be in San Diego.
I'll open it up to my commissioner here. I know he's got quite a things to say, so.
Sure, I've got a couple pages of, no, I'm teasing. But yeah, I thought it was a great conference. It's always full of information, really good sessions. And so I really, really enjoy it. I think there's a few more electeds. Normally, it seems like it's more dominated by staff, but I'd recommend that electeds go there too, because again, it's very educational. Just some of the comments, that I picked up in some of the discussions, some of the executive directors were talking about, and some of the staff about how it used to be, the jobs were just about transportation and not housing, and about how housing now has become a major part of that. The other thing, it's with everything in the state of California, how seems to be kind of a disconnect, not kind of a disconnect. There is a disconnect between the general public and, what is going on in Sacramento in terms of some of the policies and so forth. Some of the things I really enjoyed were the relationship building. We had a chance to spend some time with some of the CTC commissioners, one in particular. And I know our executive director also had that time to really, she already knows these people, has a great relationship, that's able to build on it. Other electeds. It was funny, one evening at one of the receptions, Diana Gomez was mentioning, introduced me to somebody, and she said, "Oh, this is the Caltrans director." Oh, okay, great. What region? No, she's the director. And I go, oh, hi, you're Dina. I want to talk to you. And her eyes get this big, and it wasn't anything negative or anything like that. So we're side said, we talked to you on Zoom a few months ago. And I think her Rolodex was going, okay, Madeira, this and that. And I assured her, it's been, trying to remember what I was saying. I said, just remember Madeira. I'll make your job easy for you. So anyway, it was kind of funny, meeting her and talking to her. We met some of the vendors, but I wanted to save the best for last. Our executive director is a very humble person. And just to remind everybody, she is the outgoing chair, or she was finishing her second year as chair of Self-Help Counties Coalition. And we're very fortunate and very proud of her leadership. She did an outstanding job of leading a discussion, really leading off the effort on Monday morning, leading discussion with other executive directors and so forth. But again, people like Tricia put us on the map. And so, again, very, very proud and consider her a very valuable teammate. And it's a great effort that all of us put together. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Poitras. Again, I'll reiterate the same thing. Tricia did have an opportunity to moderate a set of panelists that were kind of giving their spill of what's going on in their area, especially with their tax measures. When I go to these sessions, one of the things, there is some talk. Seems like these conversations that we're having are surrounding housing elements and housing. And I think that was some of the conversations that we had over at the CalCog policy forum that we went to. But it seemed like a lot of it was the same talk. It was redundant. But I get an opportunity to kind of sit back and look and kind of just start brainstorming. See, and one of the things that I came up with is overall, the solutions for transportation seem to be like a revolving door. Bad policies chased by funding that is not sustainable and really not effective in all regions. And what I mean by that is that we get to see these policies that are made, and I've said this before, is that these policies may be policies that are really more desirable for areas that are really highly urban. But again, when it comes to Madera County, it certainly doesn't really apply to us. But I think that conversation needs to be said. I see it a lot like education. They rhyme, and it's as far as the departments, there's a lot of money that's spent in chasing consultants and chasing all these things, but very little left on the actual idea of what we want to get done. And that's kind of what I see. Trish did provide a song, by the way. She created in 2 minutes, which was AI. So that was her walk-up song. So that becomes the center of conversation now is AI. How does AI or quantum computing really help us in transportation? And I think that if you really put that at the center of it, you'd be surprised how much we can really, save money. But there's also a cost to that. And that cost is a spillage of jobs. You lose a lot of jobs that people actually need to create sustenance to them, to their family. So how do you weigh that out, right? And that's part of these forums that I attend. I'd like to see what the legislative analysts are saying, but at the same time, what are you trying to get to? And at the end of the day, it's hard not to see that AI will be a big factor in how we deal with transportation in the future, if not already implemented in certain cases. So I just want to leave with that. It's a really good, I enjoy going to those. I hope that more of my colleagues would do that so that you experience what LaSalle County really goes through. We're 125 out of 50 some counties, right?
Yep,
I got that wrong, by the way. I said 26 and it's 25, right? Okay, there you go. So anyhow, that's all I have. Again, thank you, Tricia, for your leadership at the Self-Help Counties. And that's all I have. So if there's no other comments, questions, or no, we'll move on to other items, miscellaneous, item 11A, items from staff.
I was just gonna report back about, the Amtrak San Joaquin's is now the Gold Runner. Last Friday, there was a kickoff of the transition from San Joaquin's to Gold Runner, so we were in attendance for that. And so that they are saying no longer refer to it as San Joaquin's. Okay, and then I just wanted to wish everyone happy holidays. So happy holidays. We won't be seeing you again until after the new year. So enjoy and cheers.
Thank you.
And I just briefly wanted to bring up continuation from the past few months. We've talked about the California waiver rescission. CARB has submitted a new emissions model to EPA for review based off the 2021 MFAC emission factor model that they built. So the ball is in EPA's hands to see their comments and their review of that. Then eventually it'll get to us so we can start testing it with our tools. But that's the latest on where that issue is.
Has EPA provided like any timeline on
Not that I
how?
not that I'm aware of. This was only about 10 days or
Sure.
very start of November that they submitted that. to
I
EPA.
know sometimes EPA can be
We've experienced that before with the review of this model in particular. Sometimes they never get to the point of actually approving it. A new one is built and then they approve the new one. So it's hard to say, but hopefully something happens soon.
Are we continuing to work with like our policy council to, you know, talk with our legislators about, hey, there's a need to get this done quickly, that conversation is happening?
That's happening regionally, statewide, locally, every level anyone can think of to do it because it is so important to not have all that funding potentially disappear for all the projects in our plan.
Excellent.
All right, that's it from items from staff.
Yeah, I think that's it from staff.
Okay, so items from Caltrans, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of staffing updates. This is the least favorite part of my board presentations when I have to announce staffing updates because it's generally not great news that I'm sharing. Want to announce the potential retirement, and I say potential because I think we're still a 1% chance. John Liu, who's our maintenance and operations deputy, is planning to retire at the end of the year. It's a pretty significant loss to District 6. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge. I think a lot of you have worked very closely with John over the years. So his plan is to leave, to retire at the end of the year. Still not sure how that backfill is going to work, if it's going to be a temp assignment or if they're going to go straight into the permanent assignment. But wanted to put that on your radar. So if you want to touch base with John, please do it between now and the end of the year. One of the other announcements is our system planning branch chief, Alec Kimmel, who has been the spearhead leader through all the tumultuous times of the 99 CMCP, is going to be leaving us for San Luis Obispo, District 5 at the end of the month. So congratulations to Alec. You do have a question on the 99 CMCP, please ask it now because after Alec is gone, I will have no clue. It is exciting though to see the 99 CMCP be completed. You know, I started this position about 7 months ago. The CMCP was slated to be done right at the beginning of my tenure. And every month when I would go to the boards to provide updates, it was almost. So thank you, Alec, for seeing that to the finish line. And I hope that it does provide value to the region, and I'm sure that it will. So again, Alec will be leaving for District 5 at the end of the month.
Kate, do you have a replacement for Alec and Ryan already, or?
Not yet. No, we're working on that. As all things government, it's not the fastest process.
Understand.
Yeah, we are working on it.
That might be good.
Maybe I'll delay it as long as I can to try to keep Alec a little bit longer. In kind of in spirit of thanking Director Taylor and the hard work that you do and the partnership that you provide to District 6, we had a District 6 tour with Assemblymember Soria last week where we were able to visit a couple of projects in Chowchilla. We also went to Mendota and Kerman. Director Taylor was not provided a whole lot of notice, and I do apologize for that. But was there. Excellent spirits, great questions, fantastic participation. So we really appreciate your partnership, and it was a great opportunity for us to showcase what's going on in Chowchilla, as well as throughout District 6. And thank you for that. You stole my thunder on the ITIP. Every note that I had written down, you covered. So thank you very much for that. And so that saves us a little bit of time. A little bit about discretionary grant programs. The Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. The applications are due this Friday. We did have a couple of virtual workshops for our partners to attend. We also were available for one-on-ones. You know, Friday's right around the corner. If you do have any last-minute questions, please reach out to my office, specifically Braden Duran. He would be the contact. If you need his contact information, let me know. Also coming up, we don't have a lot of details about it, is the Build 2026 program. So we're expecting the next round of build funding to be announced in the next couple of months. While we don't have any exact details on the notice of funding opportunity, we're really not anticipating any major changes from the last round. One thing that I do want to put on your radar is you will have 14 business days after the NOFO is released to request a letter of support from Caltrans. And that's because of the signature processes and reviews. So please be mindful of that. That also would be coordinated with Braden Duran. He handles all the letters of support out of our office. What we're anticipating schedule-wise is the notice of funding opportunity to come out in the next couple of months with a federal application deadline January or February. Your guess is as good as mine. That's where we're expecting. And we do really expect that the announcements for the awards is going to be next summer. My 99 CMCP update is now gone, so I get to scratch that item off my list. I'm sure you'll all be relieved for that. Going into some project updates, South Madera 6 lane. Caltrans is still working with the railroad. This is the only item left to achieve right-of-way cert. After that, we'll be clear to ready to list the project. So moving along, things should be fun. North Madera 6 lane, project approval and environmental document. We're targeting April 2028. Everybody's pretty familiar with what's going on with that project. The downtown Madera Cap M project on 145. The project did advertise November 10th. We're anticipating construction in May of 2026. Obviously, this is following the completion of the city's water project. There will be a groundbreaking ceremony. Once we have a contractor on board, we'll be able to start planning that. Madera South Expressway design is anticipated to be completed next month with construction in spring of next year. And last but not least, the Chowchilla Cap M project. Design is currently working full speed ahead on plans to submit the plan specification and estimate package to the district office engineer in the fall with ready to list targeting spring of 2026. Last board meeting, you had a question. Hopefully you received my email last night. I did. Perfect. Thank you. I wanted to make sure I closed the loop on that. With that, do I have any questions?
Any comments or questions for Shane? All right. Well, thank you again, Shane.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information from Caltrans. At this time, I'll open it up now for item 11C, item 11 commissioners. Do we have any items from commissioners here?
I'd just like to mention one other conference we attended was the CalCog, California Council of Governments Conference. And it was short. It was one evening and then the next day. But it was it's a good organization, statewide council of governments. There's the membership consists of what they call the Big Four. These, from the Bay Area and then Southern California, these mega COGs, regional COGs, and then the smaller MPOs, which we would be one of. But it's very important that we're there to provide input. It's a group that advocates for the MPOs, council of governments, but we talked about the one size fits all, and if in the major groups, even though there are some differences, Southern California versus Northern California, but it's important that our rural areas are represented as well too. So I'm happy that we're able to be there and provide input so that advocacy could take place on our behalf. So just want to report back. We are members, so it's important to know that we are participating. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up to the same comment. Thank you for organizing the field trip to the city of Chowchilla. for 233 and with the organizing with the Caltrain as well. I heard the great feedback from the staff. Everybody was very thankful, and I wanted to publicly say that, it was a great effort, and thank you for doing all that effort that you guys have done. I heard from somebody woman, Esmeralda Sorafter on the American Economic Development. She said it was different when you hear something and actually you're on the field, observing, when put on the ground and you can actually see what the issues are. So now I can understand, and I will take that to the Sacramento. So I'm hoping for the good outcomes. Thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioner Ahmed. Anyone else? With that, I just wanted to recognize, take a moment now to let people know that we lost a former mayor, city council member, Herman Perez. So I just wanted to acknowledge and send our condolences to his family and loved ones during this difficult time. Other than that, then we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you again. Have a happy Thanksgiving.